Thanks, Marie. And hello, everybody. My name is Chris Lincoln. I work at Smee Ford. I joined the business in September. I'm specializing in business intelligence and helping my clients to grow their legacy income by using legacy data. So at Smee Ford, we've now developed a bespoke data solutions, which is very tailored to what individuals and specific charities want to be able to look at in order to grow their income and to fulfill their strategy. And so over the last 9 or so months, I've been working very closely with my clients to help them do that. So I'm looking after the top 150 charities. That being said, I am partnered with some charities that are outside of that. So there is opportunity for any charity to enter into a bespoke data solution. Today, I'm essentially going to walk through a PowerPoint deck that's going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing in Smee Ford and the conversations we've been having. And also a live demonstration of an exclusive dashboard that we've built for Marie and for Make a Will Online to show you what high value legacy analysis looks like. This has been a really hot talking point among the top 150. Many of them have actually integrated this into a module of their strategy. So I'm really excited to show you what a setup dashboard showing you high value legacy income looks like. So I'll share my screen, and do feel free to share questions, as Marie said, and show you what we've put together in terms of deck. Okay, so many of you will know us from the notification service that we've been doing for many, many years. We have over 125 years of experience of working with charities and legacy teams. And we've been helping charities to identify gifts in wills when they are coming, to be able to forecast their income and essentially inform their strategy and build their forecast. So in terms of what we experienced over the last few years was we heard from clients that they wanted us to be a bit more vocal, a bit more have a bit more comprehensive and bespoke approach to help charities rather than just setting off the notification service. And so that's one of the reasons that I was really excited to join Smee Ford, was because this was very much driven from our clients and driven from the charity sector. And so what we've developed is the custom-made analytics. Typically, these are in the form of dashboards, but we're also doing reports, and we're doing workshops, and we're doing lots of really cool things to make sure that you guys are able to save time in terms of the analysis, so that you've got more time to do the things that really matter. And so we're also using this data to build strategic reports on recommendations as to what you should do, how you should use that data, what the kind of 3 recommendations are for you to grow, for you to acquire, for you to understand what your messaging should look like for your audience, all these kinds of neat things that are really key to a charity being successful. And lastly, we're also doing consultancy as well. So we've recruited Claire Sweeney, who's our partner, she's heading up all the consultancy projects, the major consultancy projects at Smee Ford, so that she can help you understand how to best use that data if you haven't got an analyst team, or if you haven't got people behind you to tell you what to do with it, or you haven't got that experience to really turn data into action. So she's been pivotal in helping make sure that you can actually do something with that data. As we've indicated at the bottom here, we've got 1,300 charities that work with us. We've got 20 years of experience in the consultancy area, and our analysts are reviewing 5,000 wills every single week to make this information available to charities and to our clients. So in terms of the custom analytics, what does that look like? Well, we've had various different setups that we've built for our client base. The sky really is the limit in terms of what we can build with it. It's a really, really comprehensive data set, but these are particularly popular setups that we've done for clients so far, certainly since I've joined. So we can look at causal area and income benchmarking. So we can tell you who your peers actually are from a quantitative perspective, like how much have they received in the last 5 years, how many bequests have they got in the last 5 years, and which charities are kind of maybe a little outperforming you a little bit, so you can understand that gap, but also who's trailing behind, and understand really what your objectives should look like, rather than kind of taking an arbitrary number and saying, okay, well, this number sounds good, this should be part of our strategy and our objectives. Because when that conversation comes around and maybe you've not hit that objective, it's not the most fun conversation to have. So it's far better to be informed on what does growth actually look like among your peers, among your sector, within the whole charity sector itself, so that you can articulate this effectively, understand it effectively, and be able to put the correct objectives and smart objectives in place. So it's a very, very kind of primary piece of data that our clients are using at the moment. This is in pretty much all the builds that we've done so far. Second is market intelligence here. So we can tell you how much market share you've got of the UK for charities like hospices or air ambulances, certain rescue services. What we've done is drilled down to their specific territory and said, okay, within that territory, what has been your market share over the last 5 to 10 years? Has it dipped? Has it spiked? And who are the key players that you should be aware of that have a large amount of market share, that maybe are in the same causal area as you or within that same territory, that you can then understand, well, who do we need to look at to understand what success looks like? What are they doing that's really effective for them to grow their market share consistently throughout the years, while perhaps we've been a bit stagnant or we've dipped a little bit. So this is a really great way to review your performance and understand what the requirements are to be a market leader within your sector. Then we've got high value legacy analysis. We're going to do a really cool interactive walkthrough of what this looks like, so you can see exactly what the kind of dashboard would be if you went for something like that. But this has become a really hot talking point among the top charities, and I think it's certainly something that we should be adopting across all charities. It's something that we should be learning from the best, because they have put a lot of thought into why this is important. And essentially what this is you pick a number that you regard as a high value legacy. To some charities, that's going to be 500,000. To some charities, that's going to be 10,000. But you need to understand how you're performing with those types of legacies and create a strategy that's dedicated to what you regard as a high value legacy. And then what you need to do is you need to analyze that performance and say, okay, well, in our territory, we're getting about 5% of these bequests. There's the charity in the same cause that's for some reason getting 25%. What are they doing that we could be doing better? And also understanding from an execution perspective, okay, well, where are those high value legacies? If we want to grow our high value legacy income of 10 to 15K or 50K legacies, what areas of the UK do we need to think about targeting? And then we can profile those people too and say, well, what do high value legacy legators look like in terms of their demographic and where they live and the types of giving trends they have, so that you can effectively mold your proposition in your marketing campaigns for high value legacies that will resonate among those types of people who leave legacies like that. So this is really, really important for you to incorporate in your strategy. Legator profiling, this is really understanding what your audience looks like. So this is another one of those pieces of data that's been really consistent in the dashboard setups that we've done so far. So, what does my audience look like? What age are they at death? What kind of bequests do they typically leave in terms of how much? And what gender are they? What cohort are they? Are they baby boomers? Are they the silent generation? And what's happening in terms of the later generations? What can we expect from that? And then being able to build that profile across the types of people that do and don't leave you legacies, and also the type of charities that they're caring about. What are their legacy giving trends? we can really give you a comprehensive picture as to what legators look like. So this is one of the things that's been really attractive to my clients so far. Pledger and donor behavior analysis. This is a really cool one. Only we can do this. It's essentially taking your Pledger database and your donor database and then running it through a cross-referencing exercise with Smee Ford's legator database and saying, okay, did they leave me a legacy? Yes or no? So we can tell you very quickly, what's your conversion rate? You know, how good is your stewardship program, and how often are people who say they're going to leave a legacy actually do? And obviously, sometimes it's going to be outside of your control, right? You're not always going to be able to do something about that. But what we're able to do that no one else is able to do is we can tell you if they didn't leave you a legacy, where did they leave it? Which charity did they leave it to? Which causal area did they end up moving over to? And even more importantly, how much did they leave? So that you can really understand your successes, but also the areas of where you need to improve, or the areas that you can't control. So it's a really, really powerful piece, and a really good measurement to have for your charity. And then identifying bedfellows and co-beneficiaries. This has been another really popular one where essentially we're able to tell you when your charity is mentioned in a will, who are the top organizations who are mentioned with you? You know, what's the average number of charities that you are included in? When you're the sole beneficiary, how often does that happen? And how often does it happen when there's 4 charities mentioned, or 3 or 2? And then the really powerful piece of this is that it tells you who your audience and what your audience cares about. You can see which charities they're investing into, because if 50% of the time your legators are also leaving legacies to an animal charity, or to a hospice, or to a medical research charity, or to heritage and culture, you're starting to understand what your audience really cares about. And that is probably one of the most important pieces of advice that I can give in terms of making sure that you're able to be successful. And when it comes to understanding what's happened with those legacies when they're shared estates, we can show you who's getting the lion's share as well. So we can tell you, okay, 70% of the time that you're mentioned in a will, you are getting the biggest part of the estate, which would be wonderful news, right? That'd be great to share. And so far we've seen that very often, that the charities we work with do get the lion's share when they're mentioned. And then where you start to look at individuals who have left these legacies, we can tell you, okay, well, which person left you the big amount, the small amount, and we can really drill down into what's happened with that particular person or that particular group of people. So that's been really great to understand your audience and what they care about. Geomapping opportunities, essentially all of the above, but looking at it from a geographical perspective, because we're capturing all of the addresses from all of the legators. So we can tell you where the hotspots of legacy giving are for your particular cause, for your particular sector, maybe among a bespoke group that we can create for you. We've had it many times where a charity said, hey, we kind of operate in the religious space, but we also operate within the kind of social welfare space. So we want a kind of a custom list to really understand how we're performing among what we consider our peers, and have a better picture of that, rather than comparing to a charity that doesn't really align with you at all, even though they might be in a similar causal area. So we take it very seriously when it comes to making sure that when you're looking at the data, the considerations for who you're comparing with has been taken. And then historical performance comparisons is just by zooming in on 4 or 5 peers that you are interested in. Smee Ford can pick those for you from an unbiased perspective and say, let's just look at the numbers and tell you who they are. Or you can, maybe add a bit of your own intuition on who you should be paying attention to. I like to recommend that you do a bit of both, because there's some things the data's going to tell you, and there's some things that you guys are going to know that you should be trusting. And so combining those, creating a list, being able to understand the performance history in terms of legacy income, number of bequests, how much residual, how much pecuniary, all that kind of thing, and getting a little granular with looking at those peers that you really care about. So I'm going to now move on to.
We've got a question.
Okay, yeah, please. Sure. Yeah.
So from Tracy, does it matter how many legacies a charity receives? Is there a minimum number to make conclusions accurate?
Okay, so the more legacies that you're looking at, the bigger the data pool, then yeah, the more effective the conclusions are going to be. And we have seen it where we've drilled down to so much of a granular level where we're only looking at, say, 40 legacies, and you can't really make strong conclusions from that. You need far much more data. And so we've seen it on both sides, where we've taken a view on so much data. It's like, okay, well, where do we start? And then we've also done the same where it's too small. So I would say, depending on the type of thing that you want to look at, if you're a charity and with, you know, maybe just 100 bequests, that's fine. What we can do is consider legacy giving within your causal area and kind of expand that number and make sure that you're able to take away key findings from that, so that you're not looking at too small of a data sample. The other thing we've done is we typically set up dashboards that cover 5 years of data, but we can go back to 2012. So where we have seen a small data set, we have just increased the duration that we're looking at and gone, okay, let's look at 10 years worth of data, see what that gives us, and then is that enough for us to start to make those conclusions? So really good question. Am I okay to move on to the demonstration? Okay, brilliant, cool. So let me pause the sharing for a moment so that I can pull up the dashboard that we're going to look at today. Here we go. Okay, so can everyone see the Make a Will Online High Value Legacy dashboard? Okay, fantastic. Okay. So what we've got here on the first screen is we're telling you what we're looking at. So the causal area hasn't been included, but it would be your causal area because that's probably the area you're going to care about, or it might be a territory. But we give you this page so that you understand the configuration of the data. So here we have, within a particular cause, the number of charitable estates supporting that cause. So that's a good place to start because it kind of gives you an idea of the size of your market. And then the number of bequests. So the number of people and then the number of bequests that are made, because people are going to make multiple bequests to multiple charities and multiple causal areas, right? So you can start to understand how much is actually going into the charity sector. Now, what we can do is take a look at the high value legacies. So here in this first graph here, we've actually shown, okay, these are all the low value legacies and how they did. So we can see that there were 513 bequests in Q4 of 2022. And then you can look at how many high value ones there were. So there were 83 at this particular time. What you can do is you can decide, okay, do I want to just look at my charity? Do I want to look at other charities in my cause? Or do I want to look at a larger picture? And then you can decide whether you want to look at high value on its own, just low value, or you want to see the division of the two. And we've got this parameter set to 50K, but we can do something very neat here and say, okay, well, actually, we'd like to see what 75K plus legacies look like. And that will update the dashboards very quickly. And you'll see where the hotspots are for legacy giving of 75K within your cause. You can see the divisions here. And you can see the number of high versus low bequests. here. So how many high value are there? How many low value are there? And we can give you the percentage of how many there are high versus low. And we can also give you the percentage of the values as well. And we can give you the values, the actual monetary amount. And then what we can do is you might be thinking, okay, I want to take a look at a specific area. So I can see that there's, a bit of a hot spot around the south. So let's take a look at Tunbridge Wells because there's a lot going on there. So we can click on Tunbridge Wells and really zoom into that area and understand what legacy giving to your cause with high value legacies looks like in that particular area of the UK. So that you zoom in on just that part that matters to you. You understand, okay, if we're going to put boots on the ground here or do a telemarketing campaign, where would be the greatest ROI and where would be maybe the riskier places to campaign? We can tell you the dates of the probate. Again, you've got your filters here. We can break things up by absolute, conditional. We can also include failed if that's something that you'd be interested in seeing. And then when you're looking at a particular area, we do a linear forecasting of what to expect with high value and low value bequests in that area. So if you've got the geography in mind, great, we can tell you what certain expectations could be depending on a linear methodology. And we rank the postcodes for you, and we can tell you how much high value legacies there. So in this case, where we're looking at 75K, we're looking at, okay, £619,000 worth of 75K legacies in Q2 2022 within Tunbridge Wells. And then we've got the ranking for the postcodes here. So you can be very strategic in where you execute. If we go back to the dashboard, you might want to understand what the people look like within the certain criteria that we've set here. The 75K legators in Tunbridge Wells, we can say, okay, well, how many are male, how many are female? What's the percentage belonging to the gender over time? Has there been differences? It looks like this is almost switched on occasion between male and female. We can tell you who the cohorts are for the type of audience that's giving these legacies within this particular area and your particular cause. What their ages at death are and what the average age at death is. We can tell you the estate bands as well. So if they're really big estates, you can understand how much they're giving to that particular cause and your own charity, if you want to see that, or a particular peer. And then we've given you the location of all the charitable estates within your cause that offer 75K legacies, the number of estates by region here, what the lapse time is that you'd expect from when they put the date of the will to the probate in years. So you can see where it's spiked here. And you can look at the average bequest value here as well. Now, bear in mind, all these charts have been set up based on some client feedback that we've had, but you might want to see something completely different. There might be a trend that you want to analyze. We can do that. This is just one that's been set for you. Okay, so that is the high value legacy income dashboard. What I'm going to do now is if I pause the share, sorry, I need to stop the share. And then I'm going to go back to my presentation and talk about the pros and cons of Smee and Ford. This is incredible. I know, Georgia, it really is. It's phenomenal. We've had such good feedback so far. So in fact, one of the cons is there's so much data, what do I do? So I know I'll talk about that in a minute. So I've got, okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we'll go to where we got to. Just going to do a quick check-in with Marie that all looking good. Can you see everything? Yeah, great, cool. Pros and cons. All right. Okay, so what are the pros? There's quite a lot, but the things that I really think about and the feedback I hear from my clients is it's great that you guys can look at the entire legacy giving across the UK. We're not restricted to clients giving us any data. It's really easy. We have so much of it already that we can set you up without you lifting a finger. We can complement the data with your own stuff, but it's up to you, depending on how comprehensive you want it. So we're looking at all the sectors, all the charities of all sizes. So we can see from the startups to the key players and understand legacy giving across the whole of the UK. If we lost 100 clients tomorrow, we'd still have the exact same data sets that we had yesterday. So it's a really robust data source, and we have a really good relationship with the HMCTS. They even give us dates of birth, which isn't even on the will. So we have some extra piece of data there that we can offer. And the second thing is built for your strategy, right? Because there's so.
I'll just interrupt you, Chris. So we've got another question about complete UK coverage. Does that include Scotland? Tracy's asking.
So Scotland, we're working on at the moment. So historically we have, but obviously there's been changes there. So we are currently in discussions at the moment to try and get Scottish data. At the moment, we don't have the most recent Scottish data. But watch this space. So secondly, built for your strategy, right? So there's a lot of kind of data that people can give you on based on their own opinions on what they think you should do and what will help you grow. But ultimately, we feel that the collaboration is really important and that we work on it together to understand your perspective of what you think growth looks like and where your gaps of knowledge are, and us complementing that and being able to give you a dashboard that when you log in, you know what you're looking at, you know the stats that you need, and you're able to pull them out and put together a wicked presentation in 5-10 minutes to the board or for your leadership, and show that your staff, which kind of comes to the third one really, is you're informed and ready. It really does help you become the most informed person in the room when it comes to the legacy data, because you've got it all at your fingertips. And if there's a quick question people need to ask you about how the charity's doing or how the cause is happening, what's happening with the trends, you have that access to be able to go in, filter the data how you see fit, and make sure that you are really informed and ready for any presentations that you've got to do, any kind of reports you've got to compile. We have literally built dashboards based on leadership reports, where our clients have said, okay, I have to deliver this to leadership every month. I'd like to be able to get that report in a couple of clicks. Well, okay, we'll build that. And so they're able to get a PowerPoint together that they can export. It's probably one feature I didn't actually show today is you can export the top level data in a spreadsheet, in an image. You can grab the charts, you can grab PDF, grab PowerPoint, all that neat stuff. So that it enables you to invest time into the really important stuff, because you probably don't have a lot of time to analyze. So yeah, it's a really good way to quickly get where you need to be. And then the other thing is, the question I got asked a lot was, oh, okay, what happens if we get the data and all of a sudden, like, we want to change it, or we're not sure what to do with it, we're not really comfortable with a particular start because we don't understand what it's saying. Well, I will be supporting you, or Sean Lineker, and we do quarterly catch-ups to make sure that you're getting value out of it, that it's aligning with the objectives and the strategy. And we bring head of data Mark Pincher with us, who's an absolute genius and sets all this stuff up. He's got really, really good knowledge of the data. He will come along. You will have sit-down discussions with him about what the data, if there's any discrepancies or if there's any improvements that you want to be making. It's a journey throughout the year. It's not a data dump of, okay, you asked for this, here you go, goodbye. It's very much, okay, this is what we think is a good starting point. What do you think? Let's walk through it together. What do you need? And then we will tweak it. We'll take things out and put things in as and when you need them. So it's a really, really collaborative approach that you will have people supporting you. So, okay, that brings me to what are the cons? There's lots of data. There's so much of it that sometimes it can be a bit intimidating knowing where to start. So that goes back to, again, that like fourth point of the pros, like having me and having the head of data, having people like Claire Sweeney be able to help you with what you should be looking at, and maybe focusing a little bit more inwards rather than taking a 10,000 foot view at a large data set. So we have seen it where clients have bought like 4 or 5 data suites, and it's quite a lot to take in. So if you're a charity with an analyst team, then great, you can deal with lots of data. But I do recommend starting off with maybe 2 data modules and then building from there to give you a little bit more time to understand it, to tweak it, to learn it, things like that. The second one's, what do I do with the data? So I mentioned this earlier because it's good to have the data, and I often hear, okay, Chris, we want it all, but like we don't know what to do with the geographic analysis. We don't know what to do with higher value legacy analysis. Like what can we actually do to change our strategy, inform our strategy, to complement it or build it? And that's where we bring in Claire Sweeney, our consultant, to actually help support you and say, maybe write your report and tell you what the key recommendations are, like what would be a forecast, or where you could potentially grow, or what your profile of legators are expecting in their messaging, maybe some charities that may be worth looking at for acquisition purposes, and being able to kind of take the time away from the analysis piece so that you aren't trying to figure out what to do with it. We bring along Claire so that she can help you with that. And she's been really great. She's been doing workshops as well. So she will typically write the report after she understands what you want, and then present it and do a quick workshop on, okay, how do I use legacy intelligence to inform my strategy for my specific charity? And then the last one is the setups currently are taking 1 to 2 weeks, which some people might say isn't too long. Some people might say, oh, I sometimes need it within the next few days because I need it urgently. Especially the last few months, we've seen a huge increase in the adoption of bespoke intelligence dashboards. So it's taking us a couple of weeks to get them built. We're hoping to perhaps improve that time once we get more and more built. But at the moment, that's how long it's taking. I put one last slide here with my information, just so if you're interested in looking at any of this data, maybe you want a private demo, maybe you need some data sooner rather than later, you've got my information here. Marie and I will make sure the deck goes out to you so that you can contact me. But that's it for the presentation of the deck and the demonstration of the high value legacy portal.
Thank you, Chris. I found that really interesting, actually. You have got, like you say, you have got a lot of data. Yeah. So have we got any more questions from anybody at the moment? And then we had a few in the chat, didn't we? But if anybody wants to do a live question, we've got another one in the chat. So from Grace, do you have any anonymized examples of what people have changed as a result of the data?
I can tell you, one of the first clients that I took on with the bespoke data looked at geomapping, and they identified a city that was really hot for legacy giving for their charity and also the cause, and they had no idea about it. And so within the first 5-10 minutes of looking at the geomapping, they were able to say, okay, we're going to launch a marketing campaign here. And that's exactly what they're doing, is they're planning a big marketing campaign in this city up north that they weren't aware of, even cared about their cause. And they would have targeted more southern areas if they didn't see that, which could have resulted in a bit more of a loss. I've worked with another charity who are launching a telemarketing campaign, and we've given them the areas where they need to do that. So that's been quite quick turnaround, but we don't have numbers right now to present to you. I'd say like those are two really recent examples that have literally changed their whole strategy, is how they're approaching things from a geographical perspective. Some charities don't even think about it from a geographical practical perspective, they just look at their database and say, okay, let's go there, 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 and there, and they don't really think about, okay, where would the five hottest cities be, and who are the charities there that are also doing well there. So I'd say those are really key examples. And there's other examples where we've identified certain types of legacy giving to show where there are kind of natural partnerships for collaboration projects. So working with an air ambulance charity who were able to see who their potential partners were, and they did not know that these charities were even an option. But now they can go to those charities and say, hey, do you know that like 40% of the time people are mentioning both of our charities? Like, there's no conflict of interest here, so let's do some work together. So these are really, really meaningful changes that you can make based on the numbers, and you can sound credible when you're having those discussions.
Really good question. So we've got another question. We've got Vanessa. She's asking how much it costs. Is it included in a general subscription?
Yeah, so it's not part of the general subscription. There's additional cost to this. So what you'd be looking at is, depending on what you'd want, would impact the cost. So we are working with charities outside of the top 150 as well. So if you are outside of the top 150, you are eligible for a smaller cost in terms of the entry. So it depends on what you want to look at. If it's just your own charity, if you're looking at a causal area, if you're looking at the entire market, then the costs are going to climb. So what I would say is that one of the really fun conversations we've had is talking about return on investment, because when we've looked at something like high value legacy analysis, you can say, okay, well, we're going to target 50K legacies. That's extraordinary more than what you would pay for a bespoke dashboard, a lot more. So essentially, the idea is, if you get one legacy as a result of your work, then that's going to more than spit in the face of what any investment that you'd make to Smee Ford for bespoke data. They're really affordable, and we work with your charity depending on your size and what your income is, what you're able to do, what you can budget, and we can make it work for you and maybe trim a few things in and out to make it cost effective for you. So yeah, I would say that's the general premise behind the cost is, how much do you want, and what type of tier are you within?
Okay, brilliant. So another question from Katie. So she said they're a smaller charity and their finance team have just cancelled the general subscription. So that'll be the notifications service. As they say, they would receive notifications from solicitors. So why, have Smee Ford? And she's trying to work out whether it's worth rejoining, and just wants some advice and information.
Okay. So I'd say from my perspective, I'd be interested to know where the solicitors are getting the notifications from themselves to be able to offer that, because we're the only organization that has that relationship with the HMC or TS to get that data. Maybe they're buying it from Smee Ford. I don't know, but I'd be interested to know a bit more about that, Katie. So if we can have a conversation about that, let's have a chat and see, whether it's worth you work on Smee Ford, or if the solicitors really can provide you with what we have and there's no additional value. I would seriously doubt it. I've not heard of this before. But yeah, I would say give me a shout. Stacey.
I just wanted to say, I'm from Smee Ford. I'm on the marketing side. Just to answer that as well, we know that solicitors do provide notifications, but sometimes there's quite a delay in that. We find generally our clients tell us that they potentially miss, in some cases, up to 55% of notifications if they just rely on solicitors. So Smee Ford generally provide half, 40%, around that number of notifications. So that would be the reason why.
The amount of notifications, Stacey, and also the turnaround time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so another question, Marcia. Is it possible to identify data for this, for who had no children? Are there areas where more are child-free than others? That's an interesting question.
That's a really good question, Marcia. I think, you're definitely thinking about things in the right way. So what we're able to do is any information that's mentioned in the will, we can capture it and quantify it. The thing is with wills, they're not, there's no specific format that they come in. So some will say things and in others that others won't say. So what I think when it comes to that, we wouldn't be able to quantify, if they had a child or not. What we could do is the way that we approach that is we look at conditional and absolute. So if there is a condition on you receiving the legacy income, 9 times out of 10, that's going to be because they are passing it to someone who could be a possible survivor. So if they are absolute, then you can start to come up with a hypothesis of how many of those may be without children, or they're certainly not leaving that part of the legacy to their children. So that's one way to address that. You're welcome, Kate.
Oh no, we've got that one.
You're welcome, Marcia.
I think, is that all the questions in the chat? I think it is. And that's all the questions in the chat. Okay, so anybody else got any more questions? No? Okay, right, let's stop the recording.